Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Friday, the 13th of March. This is Brent Lundstrom. I'm the director of the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence for Washington State. For those of you who aren't familiar with us or haven't joined any of our sessions, we run a center. We're hosted at Whatcom Community College, but we support all 34 community technical colleges with their cybersecurity programs and helping to refine the programs and areas of study, as well as help our students and graduates get jobs once they graduate. So a lot of work to do here in Washington State. We still have an unemployment or a gap in cybersecurity professionals of over 13,000 positions. So it's important work, and we're excited to give you some more information on what's happening in the workforce these days. Before I jump into our special guest, I just wanted to give a reminder to all of our instructors and colleges. If you are looking to get some professional development, we do have professional development funds that are available. We can support instructors or anyone that's wanting to become an instructor in cybersecurity, and learn more about cybersecurity or update your cybersecurity certifications, things like that, conferences, training, all of that. We can support up to $2,500 per individual. So the funds are limited. So we just need you to apply on our website for the funds, and then we can work on supporting you. So just a final call out. We typically have the final call for submissions for professional development funds in early May. So now is the time to take advantage, especially as we have the NICE conference that's coming up. Um, Insight has their cybersecurity across disciplines event that will be in Chicago. So a lot of opportunities to get professional development and attend some conferences if you haven't done so already. So. All right. Well, yeah, I'd like to introduce our special guest today, who his name is Kip Boyle. He is the founder and chief information security officer at Cyber Risk Opportunities. Kip is a local legend, and he is just like on fire these days. He's written a book called, um, he's the author of the Fire Doesn't Innovate. He's also the co-host of the Cyber Risk Management podcast with over 200 episodes. He helps organizations across the country manage their cyber risk through practical business-focused strategies. So, you know, AI is just transforming the workforce today, and we want to hear from a hiring manager and someone who has a lot of experience on how AI is impacting the workforce strategies. And so, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and have Kip take the floor. So, Kip, floor is yours.
Oh, thanks very much. I hope my audio and my video are coming through. If anybody has any problems, please let me know in the chat. The way I'd like to start today, well, first of all, I don't know if you saw it. Some of you, the message bounced, but I sent two PDF handouts to everybody who had signed up for this session, and I did get some bounce back. So if you don't see it, you might want to check, your junk folder, and maybe you'll find it there. But I'm gonna show these two handouts, these two PDFs on the screen today. We're gonna walk through them. Now, let me tell you a little bit about myself, just a little bit beyond what Brent said, and then I've got a question for you to begin. I'm going to tell you the question, and then I'm going to do a little intro for me, and then I'm going to come back and I want to hear what y'all have to say. So I appreciate that you're here. I know you have a million different things you could be doing with this time. So I suspect you're here because you have a burning question. There's something that you would like to get an answer to. And so think about that. And then I'm going to hear what your number one burning question is that brought you to this session. And you can come off mute when I get to that, and you can say it, or you can put it in chat right now. Any questions that you do have as we go through the material today, I would recommend that you put your question in the chat, and then that way Brent can uh, do an orderly Q&A session at the end. So think about what's your number one burning question. Okay, so here's what I want you to know about me. I'm biased. Everybody's got bias. Here's my bias. So the company that I work in right now, that I founded, we're in our 11th year. I've never been a small business owner before. This is my first time. So I'm delighted that we're still around. I've got about 6 people who I support, who's on my team, and we serve as a fractional chief information security officer. So that's how we go to market. We also go to market as educators. I love to teach, and Lisa Shaw, who's on my team, who's here today, Lisa likes to tell everybody that I started a company to support my teaching habit, and I don't think that's probably too far off, although I hadn't thought about it that way. But it turns out that going to market as an educator in this space is actually a very productive approach. We end up attracting some really high quality, sophisticated risk managers. Those are really the people that we love to work with. I learned how to do cybersecurity when I started working for Uncle Sam when I went on active duty in the Air Force. And when I left the Air Force after about 5 years, I worked at Stanford Research. I was the chief information security officer at PEMCO Mutual Insurance for 7 years, right here in Seattle. And I also worked at Expeditors International of Washington for about 5 years as a global IT risk manager. So um, these days, we serve mostly upper mid-market companies. So these are organizations that earn somewhere between $50 million of revenue every year, maybe up to about $1 billion. So that's our sweet spot. And having said that, I talk to CISOs all the time. So I'm very well aware of what's going on in giant enterprise and large enterprise. And so this is the perspective that I'm bringing to you today. Before I forget, I am a graduate of Green River College, and I loved my experience there. It was wonderful. I recommend it. My kids have gone to Green River. I just live in this area, but really, I would recommend a community college um, uh, without reservation. It's a wonderful institution in general, and so I'm a big fan. Okay, what's your number one burning question? Why are you here? What do you want? What do you want to find out to make the time you've spent successful?
Kip, can people just shout it out if they have a question,
Yeah,
or
they
do we
can
need
they
to
can
put
just
it in
come
the
off.
chat?
They can come off mute and ask the question. They can put it in chat, whichever you feel most comfortable with. I can handle it. I got the chat box open right now.
I don't so much have a burning question, but I was hoping to just find out some information. Our school is very interested, of course, in AI,
Mm-hmm.
and um, more information about how to best integrate it into my classes to help
Okay,
my students as they look for work later.
great. I am going to touch on that. So
Great.
appreciate that. What else? Who else has a top question, right? Maybe it's not burning, but maybe it's smoldering. I don't know. So you are all here just for the ride. Okay, that's cool. If you have
I,
questions, go ahead, Lisa.
I'm going to have a question, Kip, but what's the process, because we use AI, in our
Yeah,
business.
we do.
So what was kind of your thought process on how you, which AI you decided to adopt for our use,
Hmm.
how you kind of researched it and thought it through, those kind of factors?
Yeah. Well, let me give a thumbnail sketch on that because I could actually do a whole workshop just
It's
answering
huge.
that question. All right. But let me just talk a little bit about it, and then time permitting, we can unpack it a little bit later on. So I started using ChatGPT the moment it came out. I've used generative AI every working day since it launched, and I've tried many of them. I can't say that I've tried all of them, but I'm an active user of Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini 3, and I also use GPT OSS 120B, which is a local large language model that I run under Olama. I and our two cyber risk analysts have Mac Studio computers with very high end chips and lots of unified memory so that we can run these things. So I've got experience with cloud generative AI and local. Now, the reality is that this is a very fast moving technology. So we have to be prepared as they leapfrog each other. We have to be prepared to migrate our work from one to the other, depending on capabilities. So, for example, the most recent capability change was when Claude released a product called Cowork. And Claude Codework is Cowork is absolutely amazing. It's an amazing assistant. I can't recommend it highly enough. So if you're not familiar with Claude Cowork, I recommend that you put that on your list of things to try as soon as possible. It's a very artifact centric. Yeah. Pete, did you have a question?
Sorry.
Oh, that's right. So Claude Cowork is a very artifact centric generative AI. I use it to either modify files or create files. The other game changing AI that I want to tell you about is called Claude Code. Now, contrary to that name, and nobody ever accused these AI companies of being masters at branding, because they're not, but Claude Code is way more than just software development. We use it extensively, but we don't use it for software development. I use mine as a chief of staff. It tracks everything and can actually help me produce things that I'm going to share. So, for example, I shared 2 PDFs today with y'all, and I'm going to start sharing them on my screen. I used generative AI to produce both of those. And I have integrated generative AI into my workflow as deeply as I can without compromising the quality of our work. So I hope that gives you just a sense of how we've embraced Gen AI and why. Oh, and I should also mention, we're not using the local large language models just for fun. The very nature of our work requires us to receive, process, and store highly confidential cyber information, right? So I jokingly refer to it as our customers' dirty digital laundry. And we can't put that stuff in the public models with high confidence that it's not going to be compromised. So anytime that we have highly sensitive information around vulnerabilities, risks, known problems, we do not put that information into the public models. If we're going to use AI, we have to do that locally on our machines with Olama and, as I said, GPT OSS 120B. So, all right, let me go ahead and share my screen and let's start getting into some of the things that you read about in the meeting invitation that was sent out. All right, so first of all, you know, we want to talk about workforce development, so I want to focus on that. Now, I've been hiring and hiring people and building teams in the cybersecurity space since 1997. So I have a lot of experience doing this. I've done it at scale, and I've done it in a small business context, and even in the middle market. So that's the bias that I'm bringing to you right now. I'm not going to talk to you from a perspective of what do the influencers say. I'm not going to talk to you from the idea that that there are these best practices or whatever. I will tell you that the job market has completely changed when it comes to cybersecurity and tech. Absolutely changed. Things that I would have recommended 5 years ago, I don't recommend anymore. I did a podcast for 4 years called Your Cyber Path, and I had co-hosts, and the point of that podcast was to help people who wanted to get into cybersecurity. That information is so stale and out of date that I've actually taken down the website, and I don't publish those episodes anymore because I don't want to deceive people. Here's what's going on. So cybersecurity hiring managers aren't really trying to grow as fast as their teams as fast as possible by putting, butts in seats, so to speak. What they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out how to get people who can solve problems as close to day one as possible, how to find them and then get them on their teams. They don't have time to train people. 6-month learning curves just don't exist. And now with AI, they're actively trying to figure out how much of the routine work that needs to be done could be done by AI agents. And the way this is impacting people at the entry level is these tasks that junior people used to use in order to come up to speed, that work is getting automated by AI. It's going away, and it's not coming back. Now, the term entry level for cybersecurity has never meant what people often think entry level means. The colloquial definition of entry level means I just graduated from some institution. I'm here. Please put me to work. And then you could get a job, and then you could learn on the job. In cybersecurity, that's never been true. Or I should say it's rarely been true. Most people who try to get cybersecurity jobs need to have a demonstrated understanding of IT. And that usually comes from actually having worked hands-on as an IT person on the job and then crossed over into cybersecurity. That has really been the sure path. Now, another thing that people have used in the past is a lot of certifications. They get their Security Plus, their CISSP when they qualify for it, and that has been a way to get around the gatekeepers in the human resources department. And that really doesn't work so much anymore. In fact, the entire process of filling out job applications, submitting resumes is horribly broken because companies have been using machine learning and AI to screen resumes for candidates for quite some time now. And those systems are awful. They often do not surface well-qualified people, and most hiring managers don't trust them, those systems. So it's not helping candidates. And now everybody who can fog a mirror, who's looking for a job, should be using artificial intelligence to create their resumes and their cover letters. The problem with that is the quality of a resume and a cover letter is no longer useful for hiring managers to distinguish who is somebody who's worth speaking to, somebody who's actually worth inviting to a interview. So we've achieved complete parity and between employers using AI and candidates using AI. And so those are not useful discriminators anymore. Now, what I like about community colleges is y'all can move a lot faster. When the landscape changes, you can typically move faster. You can typically pivot more faster, more effectively. I think community colleges spend more time staying closer to employers, and you have more experience interacting with working adults. And so I think you have that edge. When I talk to people in universities, they tend to view, the whole question of how will my graduates get work in a very clinical way. They're really not that interested. And so I don't think that serves their students very well, to the extent that the students are showing up because they want to get a good paying job. And I know there's a whole talk about, well, that's not the purpose of university, to prepare people for jobs, but tell that to all the people signing up for university, because the majority of them are going because they want jobs. So I think there's a little bit of a disconnect there. All right, now I want to talk about the fact that if universities aren't doing enough to prepare people to work, and if community colleges want to do a good job, what does that look like? All right, so again, a hiring manager wants to know, what can you do right away? Now, one of the reasons why they're struggling with that is because they're already under an absolute rush of work. They don't have enough people to get done what's in their hands right now, and that makes them feel like they have no bandwidth to teach anybody anything. So they want people who have a proven track record. And that means we're not interested in how many credentials you have, because you no longer need to use that to get past the gatekeepers in the human resources department. Most of the biggest employers, including the US federal government, have de-emphasized college degrees in the hiring process. They're no longer required in many cases. And I see that as falling dominoes. That will continue, I think, to be the case, where people who are setting the hiring standards are going to continue to de-emphasize that. What they are emphasizing is, what can you do, and how can I know that you can do that? So candidates need to be able to show that they can solve problems. Now, that's a little bit of a catch-22, right? How can I solve problems if you won't give me a job so that I can learn how to solve the problems that you have, right? This is an issue. So micro-credentials are a good way to deal with that. And you want to build project portfolios. So we're starting to sort of resemble fine arts students, right? Where we have to have a portfolio of work that we can show in order to prove to hiring managers that we have competencies that can actually help them right away. Now, one of the things that I've shared with you, if you got my email, if you didn't, feel free to send me the email, send me an email, and I will, send it again. I'm going to put my email address here in the chat so you can have it directly. But and we're gonna review it here in a moment. But one of the things that I do, I have a lot of people that come to me all the time, and they say, "Hey, I want to get into cybersecurity. How do I do that?" Or, "Hey, my nephew, my daughter, whatever, my brother-in-law." And so I'm sharing with you now what I tell them. So you want to get some micro credentials, and ideally they're going to be stackable, which is to say, I think of it as like a kind of like a bunch of puzzle pieces, right? You want things like cloud security, incident response, maybe digital forensics, and you want to kind of like weave them together into a tapestry to show that you've got some breadth. Now, the way that I recommend that be done is, I don't know how many of you ever heard of this thing called the Cloud Resume Challenge. This is not put out by an organization. It's put out by an individual. And if you go to Cloud Resume Challenge in your search engine, you'll probably find it without too much trouble. It's a very low cost, very highly effective micro credential. It is a wonderful way to learn while doing, and it steps you through step by step how to build a application in the cloud. And there's at least 3 different versions of this. The last time I checked, there's an AWS version, a Microsoft Azure version, and a Google Cloud version. So you pick the tech stack, the cloud stack that you want to know about, and then it walks you through it. Now, that is a wonderful micro credential. If you want to show hiring managers that you can actually do this work, you want to learn in public. And so this PDF here is how to use the Cloud resume challenge on LinkedIn so that you can build a portfolio. Now, LinkedIn makes sense because that's where a lot of hiring activities happen. Even if a recruiter isn't recruiting off of LinkedIn, they're going to look for the profiles of people that they're considering. And so you want your portfolio of work to show up on your LinkedIn profile. So this right now is how many pages is this? It's a 12-page tutorial of how to do this. So, and it really is a step-by-step guide. It starts by getting your LinkedIn portfolio set up correctly. I give examples and formulas for how to do all this stuff. So, what do you write as a headline? Most people's LinkedIn profiles are awful from a hiring manager point of view. And so I want to help people understand how to make themselves look irresistible to hiring managers. And so that's again my bias, that's my frame of reference. So your about section, right? Breaking it down paragraph by paragraph. What do you put in for experience, right? And these are people who don't have jobs or maybe just have a very limited work history. So what we're going to do in this approach is we're going to make a new job in LinkedIn, and that job is going to be this micro credential, and it's going to contain social media posts, videos, whatever a person can do to document their learning journey on their LinkedIn profile page. So I'm not going to go through this line by line for you, but I think I've hopefully done a good enough job of explaining what this is. How do you actually do posting? What's the structure of a post? I give example templates, what to post about, how frequently to post, how to engage with other people, how to find things to comment on, what's a good comment, how to connect with the right people. Here's the thing. These days, if you want to get hired, it's all about who you know. And if you don't know anybody, you got to fix that. And it's very common for people in your classrooms, they don't know anybody. That's okay. There's ways to begin to know people. And that's what this part 4 is about. So how do you reach out to people? How do you connect with them? I've got a weekly routine in here, right? Now, I'm not saying that these items are the pinnacle of how you do stuff on LinkedIn. That's not what it's meant to be. It's meant to be a starting place to help people get some initial traction. Here's some common mistakes to avoid, some final tips, and then an action plan, some FAQs. Okay, happy to answer any questions about this one when we get to Q&A, but I just wanted to say, it's if you want to get hired, it's about a micro-credential or multiple of them and learning in public so that hiring managers can see that you do know how to solve problems. You don't need to be an expert, but they need to see that work ethic. Okay, so how can community colleges fill this gap? It's practical training. That's really what people need. And I know that at least out at Green River, the last time I checked, there was a lot of hands-on aspects to their curricula. And I think that's excellent. Those folks going through the programs out there will graduate with the expected certifications, the Security Plus, the A Plus, the CompTIA stuff. More importantly, they'll understand how routers get configured for security. They'll understand how Windows workstations get configured for security. They're starting to build muscle memory for doing that. And that's excellent, because even if they go on the job and they end up using artificial intelligence, which I'll talk about in a moment, they still are going to benefit from that. Hey, I got my hands dirty plugging things in and typing on keyboards. It's a wonderful foundation for people to have a real visceral understanding of how these systems actually work. I also want to talk about the apprenticeship path. So again, the idea that your students can go and work in roles that have been considered junior. That's collapsing. There's research out there that is actually proving this. So it's not just Kip's anecdotal observation. This is actually proven. You can take that place by building not just laboratories where people can get hands-on experience, but why not build a security operations center for your institution and have your students actually protect the college and weave AI into it, but deliberately create space for people in those positions. Again, not because they're going to go get those jobs, but because this is going to prepare them for the jobs that are actually out there and available. So let's talk about AI. You need to weave this into every course that you offer, not as a separate standalone topic, but as actually part of how students are learning, working, and thinking. This transition period that we're in with generative AI reminds me a lot of the introduction of things like calculators, handheld calculators. When those started showing up in the 1970s, a lot of teachers were outraged and they thought it was absolutely wrong to bring calculators into the classroom, especially at the elementary level, but even at university level. The people who were teaching at that time, advanced mathematics, they were still people who used slide rules to put a man on the moon. And they looked at calculators with great skepticism. And they thought that it was going to be the ruin of mathematics as a discipline, not only to teach, but to actually practice on the job. Well, we can look back and see that that's not what happened. But what did happen is that calculators freed up people from doing the rote, messy, error-prone work of this basic mathematics, and it freed them up to work on harder problems that didn't get the attention that they deserved. We can also look at the introduction of the electronic spreadsheet, Lotus 123, Microsoft Excel. Those tools didn't kill mathematical scenario capabilities, it accelerated them. Same with PowerPoint, same with Microsoft Word and word processors. Now, I understand that generative AI is different than those tools, the ones that I'm mentioning. And so it's bringing its own little wrinkles to it. But I just want to say that hiring managers, this is how we think about it. We want our folks to be AI literate, and we expect them to use artificial intelligence to do the grunt work so that they can focus on the stuff that AI doesn't do very well, especially around human relationships and risk management and architecture, that sort of thing. Okay. Looking at the chat, there's a lot going in there. Brent, is there anything that we should take care of right now before I continue?
Yeah, I mean, there's a question here about has AI literacy actually been defined? Like, what does that mean right now? And then
Yeah.
what does it mean to like achieve that? So that's a pretty good question.
I have a working understanding of AI literacy. I don't know that it's been formally defined by any group like like a research institute or a big name university. I don't know that it has that kind of pedigree behind it, but there are different levels of AI competency, and I'm not going to exhaustively go through them, but for example, a basic AI capability is how to and you've actually gone to ChatGPT or one of these public models, and you've actually learned how to have discourse with it and actually use it to solve rudimentary problems. In other words, you're not going to Google anymore to do web searches to solve problems. You're going to generative AI to attempt to solve problems. That's a very basic level. In contrast, a very high level, which I think is actual fluency, would be you understand the pros and cons of the various models that are available, and you discriminate between these models based on the kind of work that you need to get done. For example, I think Claude is the best writing partner, hands down, for the type of writing that I do. I would not bring a writing assignment to GPT, and I wouldn't bring it to Gemini or any of the others. I wouldn't go there first. However, if I'm doing something, some problem solving that in the past I might have taken to a Google search box, I will take that to Gemini 3, because Gemini 3 is a bit more savvy about some of the problem spaces that ordinary people are wrestling with. So I just feel like Gemini 3 just feels a little more street savvy, a little more practical with daily issues than Claude is.
Well, my question on this topic actually is going to another level in terms of, I mean, we're teaching cybersecurity students, right? And so we have this whole agentic AI that's now becoming
Yep.
the new wave. You've got OpenClaw and all these new
Yep.
tools that are even, your agent is going out and learning from other agents and acquiring skills and all these things. And we've got organizations that are looking to adopt OpenClaw to become their executive assistant, right?
Yep.
Like at what level do we need to be teaching our students how to set this up? What are the security protocols? And like where do you feel that needs to be an emphasis in terms of the fundamentals we're teaching now versus, say, traditional networking? Or where does this like rank for you?
Yeah, what a great question. The future of AI is agentic, period. You must teach agentic AI. And I think, Brett, you made the point very well. I won't repeat what you've said. But look what I've got highlighted right here on the screen. AI is going to automate the production layer. It already is. The specification layer is where the jobs grow. And this is relevant especially for agentic. So let's take OpenClaw as an example. You don't prompt OpenClaw for greatest benefit. What you do with OpenClaw is you give it a specification. You tell it, what does a great outcome look like? And then you step back and you let OpenClaw figure out how it's going to produce the outcome that you want. So you need to get out of pushing the model step by step through a workflow, which is kind of where we've been, especially when you work with chat-based AI systems. And you've got to start now specifying what good looks like from an outcome perspective, and then turn it over to an agent and then get out of the way. So that's what you need to teach your students how to do. That right now, I would say, is the height of AI literacy for people who are not working in one of these AI labs. If you're not building AI systems, but you're using AI systems, it's specifications and agentic. Now that's going to change. If I was doing this talk with you a year from now, I would probably be telling you that that it's not about agents, it's about orchestrating agents, because I think that's where it's going. So this is a moving target. It's moving faster than anything I've ever experienced. And you've got to figure out how to be flexible, adaptable, and you got to be hitting a moving target more than you ever have in anything you've ever experienced. I don't know if I encouraged you or depressed you, Brent.
Well, I mean, I think the question is where do we rank this at, because if we're creating 2-year AA programs, where does this rank in the fundamentals that you would want to see a cybersecurity?
I think, I mean, if it were me, if you all came to me and said, Kip, design, we're gonna have a day come, help us design a curriculum, I would put generative AI and agents in every course, and I would weave it into everything from the beginning. From the very first course, I would be introducing it right away, and I would make AI and agents a learning partner for every one of your students. Does that
Question
sound
two
like too
came in.
too tall of an order?
Can you quickly go over what it means for AI to be agentic versus non-agentic, and what does it
Yep.
mean to orchestrate agents?
Yeah. I'll give you like the quick thumbnail sketch. Okay. So an AI agent like OpenClaw is designed to be autonomous. You're to give it a set of outcomes that you want it to produce, and then you step out of the way. Generative AI, as we've experienced it so far through chat interfaces, are challenge and response. You say something, it says something back, and then it just sits there and does nothing. And they're very session based. So every time you start a new session, it forgets that you've ever talked with it before. Now, projects are a way to create in the chat realm something that approximates memory. In Claude Code and Claude Cowork, you have persistent memory across sessions because it's been architected that way. But they're not agents yet. Agents are entities that will work overnight for you and will deliver results on schedule. So for example, you could say to an agent, every day at 7 a.m., I want you to give me a news summary. This is what I want it to cover. It needs to be written at a Fleisch-Kincaid level 6, and I don't want it to be any more than 1,500 words, and I want it to be, that's a specification. You give it a specification, and then it just shows up. You don't have to prompt it to tell it, when to do it. You've specified it. You just have to evaluate the results. Now, what do I mean by orchestrating agents? Well, if you're working at scale, and you can go study this because Walmart last summer released a paper where they described where they're at in their AI journey. What they've done is they've created like 200 agents. Each one of them at the enterprise level is focused on a different aspect of their business. And there's specialization. The problem that they ran into is, how do I get these agents who have specialization to work with each other? And that's where the agent orchestrator came from. So you give the agent orchestrator an assignment. Figure out what should be the staffing at Walmart stores of this size in these kinds of metro areas in 2027. In order for it to do that, it's got to call on the human resources experts. It has to call on the demand generation experts. It has to call on supply chain experts. And so an agentic coordinator is going to break that problem out into its component parts, give it out to sub-agents, receive the results, integrate, synthesize, and then provide an answer. And if you go to Walmart, if you do a little search on it, you can read how they're doing it. I hope that helped. Okay. We're running out of time, and I would like to get through this material here. So given that you should be teaching your students about agents and about specifications, this is my recommendation here. So you want to get really, really clear on what are the human skills. What are the things that we can't reasonably expect artificial intelligence to be doing anytime soon, even with all the evolution, right? So for me, that would include things like executive level communication, because there's so much nuance and context that you have to integrate into the presentations and into the reports that you create for them. I'm going to use AI to help me to gather the facts, synthesize the facts, but then I'm going to take that output from the AI and then I'm going to contextualize it, not only to the business, but I'm going to contextualize it to the risk appetite and risk tolerance of the executive that I'm going to present to. And AI can't do that yet. Making risk decisions, structured reasoning at a certain point is going to be beyond the capability of AI right now. Now, as far as working with AI, prompting, yes, but also specifications, validating output, catching errors. This is really hard for beginners, not just AI beginners, but people early in their career because they don't have any judgment. They haven't had a lot of work experience to be able to sort of look at the output of an AI and go, nope, that's not right. So, and even I struggle with that sometimes. AI that is helping me produce in my subject matter area Okay, yeah, I can definitely. I feel highly confident that I can tell when it's hallucinating. But I do things to in my prompting regime to reduce the risk of hallucinations as well, because AI is a garbage in, garbage out phenomenon. So if you can make sure that your inputs are high quality and that you structured the work correctly, it's going to really cut down on hallucinations. So so people who are new, who are young, who don't have a lot of work experience, have to come up with a workaround. And I'll tell you what the workaround is in my experience. I will take the output from Claude and I will feed it to Gemini. And I will say, Gemini, you are a expert at detecting material errors and omissions in this kind of work, whatever it is. And then I'll tell it, this is something that I received from another expert. I want you to thoroughly analyze it, and I want you to tell me where are the gaps and where are the inaccuracies. And I do that with two other AIs. So I'll take output from Claude, put it in Gemini. I'll take the same output, same prompt, and I'll put that into ChatGPT. I turn them up to their highest thinking capability, highest, most competent models. And then I take the outcome from those, review it, and then I give it back to Claude and I say, I've just received two critiques from your output from two experts. I want you to evaluate this feedback and I want you to tell me what you need to change based on this critique from what you originally gave me. This is a surprisingly effective approach. Questions about that? And then as instructors, as educators, you need to watch for the atrophy of thinking skills, because it's way too easy for young folks and really anybody, I think this is human nature, to outsource reasoning to AI or to try to do it, which is not a good idea at this point because these things are absolutely fallible, right? These are non-deterministic systems. Now, the problem that I have with senior decision makers is that they're so used to managing and governing deterministic systems that they have a really hard time shifting their approach to deal with probabilistic systems. And in fact, I'm writing a whole book right now about this and what they can do to be successful in that transition. So anyway, but back to the point, your students need to continue to be challenged to do hard reasoning, even if AI does it. Otherwise, they're not going to have judgment. Judgment, taste, these are human attributes, human capabilities that must be cultivated, because that stuff can't be AI automated at this time. And even in the foreseeable future, I don't see that stuff being automated. Questions?
Kip, we have about 10 minutes left
Yeah, thanks for the time check. So the last bit here, right? Advice for students and career changers. Really, this is just a recitation of what I've already covered. If you're talking to your students, current perspective, these 4 bullets might help you at least, keep these in your hip pocket. It'll give you like the core talking points that should help you give them the guidance that they need. So that's it. That's everything that I absolutely wanted to share with you. I'm happy to take questions now.
Just
a quick comment. The LinkedIn PDF is brilliant, and I love it because and of course I love it because much of it aligns with what I try to tell my students, but because it's me, they're not going to hear it as well as coming from you, right? So I dropped it into Canvas and I ran our accessibility checker, and of course it was missing some tags. So I dropped the file, which is a huge deal in education right now. We have to be compliant by April, or the feds crack down on colleges. So we're getting a lot of pressure. But I dropped it in CoWork. I don't happen to have Acrobat Pro, so I dropped it in CoWork and I gave it a very nice and simple prompt, which was, let me just pull this up. Please fix accessibility issues in the linked guide so it has accessibility tags. Let me find the linked guide in your folder and read the appropriate skill for fixing it. It added the Acrobat skill or the PDF skill. Went through, fixed it. I uploaded it. I'm happy to share it back to you if you want
That'd be great.
Features. But
Please.
Yeah, just it was great. I gave it the Opus 4.6, so I gave it the more thinking LLM model. And so that was how I did it. But anyway, I love CoWork. I will add though, one issue with CoWork, it's not free. You got to pay the $20 and a month for it. And so that's something I'll just mention to others. But CoWork for fixing accessibility issues has been unbelievably great tool for me.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's great perspective. Thank you. And I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to get that document back with accessibility. Thank you.
Do that.
So there's a question in the chat. If the job application system is broken, how do you advise working through that now? If quality of resume cover letter is no longer a way to determine who is worth talking to, how would a hiring manager go about that now, and how would you suggest optimizing for that?
Yep. Well, hiring managers are going to do what they've always done, which is they want referrals. What, Lisa, were you going to say something?
Yeah, because I think I have a question that plays into that. How do you stand out as a job applicant regarding showing your curiosity, showing your passion, showing your tenacity? How important is that, and how do you reflect that to hiring managers and on your work experience and application?
Yeah. So the answer to both of those questions is networking. You have to meet people. You have to meet people who are working at the kinds of places you would like to work at. And you have to get referrals to hiring managers, because that's the only thing that works these days. I would go so far as to say that that's the only thing that really ever worked anyway. And the reason why I can say that is because from the time I left the Air Force in 1997, every job I got, every single one of them, is because I knew somebody. And that's always been the gold standard. Well, now it's the only. And this guide here, the LinkedIn Guide for the Cloud Resume Challenge, is the #1 best way to position yourself to be able to show that you can solve problems, that you're curious, that you're a self-starter, that you can finish what you start. And all the qualities that I look for can be demonstrated by following this guide and learning in public.
Yeah, we hosted an event here at Whatcom Community College, and a lot of the students it was an opportunity to start networking with employers. A lot of the students were sort of wallflowers. We gave them some prompts to connect with employers, but I agree. These days, you got to get out there. You got to join local cybersecurity organizations. You got to go to events like B-Sides.
Yep.
You got to ISSA,
ISSA.
great. Cloud Security Alliance has a chapter.
That's right.
A lot of these local organizations are hosting events, and you're talking to people that have been in your place, right? And want to help you get to the next level. So
that's right. Yep. But the best thing to do is to volunteer at all those places. Don't just go. Yeah. Volunteer. Because here's the thing that I know about that. All of these community groups, these community professional groups, they are all run by the best hiring managers you'll ever want to work for. And the best way to meet them is to go be a volunteer. And then they can meet you in a non-competitive environment, and then you can show them what you're made of firsthand. So I'm sorry for the people who are wallflowers and don't know how to get off the wall. They're a serious disadvantage.
Yeah. Cool. I don't know if I got to all the questions in the chat. Any other questions for Kip? This has been great.
You're welcome to follow up with me if you have my email address. You're welcome to send me queries, follow-up questions. I'm happy to take those.
Hey, this is Mark from Spokane Falls Community College. This was interesting because I was in a meeting with a whole host of CEOs in Spokane this week, and the topic of how do students prove their capabilities or prove their worth coming out of college. And when I spoke to the group and I told them that I predominantly use cyber ranges, so I live on cyber ranges. I think right now I'm up to about 4 or 5 different cyber ranges. That's they're not costing me much, but that's the price for success, right?
Yeah.
So I think the hands-on aspect of giving these kids these cyber ranges that they can actually build a resume and build those micro credentials is priceless.
It is. And $20 a month for maybe for Hack the Box or whatever, $20 a month for a subscription to Claude so that you can get access to co-work and whatever. I understand people are used to not paying for stuff on the internet, but the value proposition is unbelievably high for your students to be putting out a little bit of money to get access to those things. The one thing about the cyber ranges is that I notice is that people kind of overdo it on the pen testing and the break the system stuff. But guess what? Most of your hiring managers need defenders, need blue teamers, need people who know how to prevent attackers from succeeding. There are relatively fewer jobs being the red teamers. I'd say it's like 5 to 1 or 10 to 1. There's like 5 or 10 blue team jobs for every 1 red team job there is out there. So they need to bear that in mind.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we do here. We're defenders. We're not. I don't really have any red team experts.
Okay. All right, everybody. We're out of time, which is too bad because I was having a lot of fun. I hope this was helpful to you. And thank you for inviting me.
Kip, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll make sure that your resources are made available to the group
Great.
post the call. Any final thoughts for our group in terms of investing in this area?
I know it's hard to get employers to, create internships and that sort of thing. I don't think it's going to get any easier. I think you need to create the opportunities that you'd like to see out in the employers. I think you're just going to have to create them yourself. And so that's just something new that I think you're going to take responsibility for if you haven't already. And I hope that you don't feel like incredibly daunted by all of these things that I've shared with you today. I tried to provide you with ways to deal with the problems that I've highlighted. So I don't think you should feel too discouraged. So I hope you don't.
Oh yeah, this is great. We can just use agentic AI to solve it for us, right?
Start
Yay!
trying to form a committee.
By the way, these agents are fun, but they will bite you hard if you don't use them well, if you don't put the security barriers around them. So be careful.
Yeah, good feedback. All right, everybody. Well, thank you
Take
again
care.
for your time, and I appreciate you joining. I look forward to future opportunities. Kip, if you want to stay on for just a quick moment, I'd love to just highlight something for you.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll stay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.